Hello, hello. Morning.
Just a heads up, House Speaker Johnson is currently speaking. Where the video is out on the feed, so speaking about the government shutdown. Nasdaq Biotech Index rises 2.2%, reaching highest since 2021.
This probably pulls back to like 90, right? Uh, all right, we got our pullback. See if we hold this pivot here. Just like VWAP at 90. Excuse me. See if we can flag here. Get over 30, or if this holds a lower high here on retest into 20, and then we continue downward. Basically watching. Does this happen? Or this holds our offer? Or are we able to show interest above for continuation out of here?
Senator Thune says shutdown ends when Democrats back House passed GOP bill.
Morning sauce.
According to a source here, Trump nominates Travis Hill to be chair of key US bank regulator.
We need to see price get over this 30 and show supportive bid. We actually want to do anything here. It's a good hold so far at our 20. All right. Perfect. Pushing into our highs now here after our flip of 30. Like our pathing, this should be your first risk off. Are trading this. Need to get over this 70 for more. Get out of this balance.
Demon's way from the bottom of the hour, get the EI crude oil inventories forecast is for a draw of 0.05 million. Prior was a draw of 0.607 million. Gasoline inventories expecting a draw of 0.08 million. Prior was a draw of 1.081 million. Distillate inventories forecast is for a draw of 1.65 million. Prior was a draw of 1.685 million. Crude Cushing inventories, prior was a build of 0.177 million. So looking at the API crude oil stock change data from last night, came in at a draw of 3.674 million compared to the prior draw of 3.82 million.
Huge push up. I think we're gonna get a retest at 70, but we'll see. Taking up a little bit more risk. 30. I'll look to see if we can get back in or retest. We can hold this like 60, 70. Be ideal, I think. You can see we've got liquidity. At our 50 to 60. Right? Looking for a pullback into that. And hopefully continuation. Right? This gets back below. Probably done. We'll see.
Just a reminder with the range then for crude oil inventories, a high estimate is for a build of 2 million with a low estimate for a draw of 2.494 million. According to a poll here, Euro forecasts to trade at around $1.20 in 6 months and $1.21 in a year, versus $1.19 and $1.20 respectively in September poll. Also, the US dollar is seen, according to a poll, US dollar position is hold steady or see net shorts increase by the end of October, according to 30 of 41 economists. FIME is going to get the EI crude oil inventories forecast is for a draw of 0.05 million. Prior was a draw of 0.607 million. Gasoline inventories looking for a draw of 0.08 million. Prior was a draw of 1.081 million. Distillate inventories looking for a draw of 1.65 million. Prior was a draw of 1.685 million. Crude Cushing inventories prior was a build of
Should be your
0.177
first risk
million.
off if you're playing off of the 60 to 70, like we talked about, just into our highs. Needs to be able to pop this, get over 90 for more. And we're just looking for like, I don't know, 900, 901.
Johnson says House will be returning next week. Johnson says nothing we can do to make stopgap bill better for the Democrats.
All right, that's high of day here. See if we can get over 90. This. Be watching for this like 90. Seeing the offer kind of just sit at this 900. I think if we can get through that little like 10-point pivot from 900 to like 910-ish, should be able to go to like 940.
One minute ago now, lead with the EI crude oil inventories.
You didn't like the 70?
Ten seconds. One spot 792 million, one spot 729 million build, 1.792 million compared to the expected draw of 0.05 million. Gasoline inventory is a build of 4.125 million, a build of 4.125 million compared to the expected draw of 0.08 million. Distilled inventories a build of 0.578 million, a build of 0.578 million compared to the expected draw of 1.65 million. Crude Cushing inventories, a draw of 0.271 million. Did see a little bit of downside movement off the back of that bigger than expected build from the crude oil inventories data. And we have posted out the weekly crude oil inventories report on the feed for you to for you to read through.
I don't know why people are still trying with like AI chatbots as support. Like it's got to be like the most unhelpful slop I've ever seen in my life.
US gasoline futures extend losses down 1.8%. US diesel futures extend losses down 0.6% off the back of the EIA storage report.
Blows my mind. Like they literally just pull from like a help section that already exists and ignore what you say and just give you like general feedback and like ignore everything, right? Like what is the point of an AI bot? It's so frustrating.
Nasdaq 100 turns positive after a racing opening decline.
All right, we're pushing in our target now and got to get over this 9 times. Or sorry, yeah.
According to the insider, Google cuts
This
employees in its cloud division.
this is where we're watching. It's like how do we build here? This is next target. I think if we can get over this, we go to 40. I took one off here.
Europe's stock 600 nears record high, hit in March at more than 1%.
Until we can show interest over this this like 10 13, like this is it for me. If we can get above this build, then I think 40 is very likely. But I'm thinking we might need to just like chill here for a bit. Just trend up so far, following our pathing to a T. But now it's just a waiting game. Yeah, like the ones that are on like websites, like trying to find support. Like, no, sorry, we're actually there is no real support anymore. We've just trained a bot on our help page, and this is all you get now. And if you have any questions that don't meet any of the topics that we've trained this bot on off of our help page, you're actually shit out of luck.
The US Supreme Court to hear arguments over Trump's bid to remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Supreme Court refuses to let Trump immediately oust Fed's Cook. The US Supreme Court to hear arguments in January in Cook firing case.
You guys watch that the generals meeting? You seen like the clips from that? Wild, I have to say. Yeah, I mean, yes, he talked a lot, but like what Trump was saying as well is crazy. I don't know, the comment about like you guys can applaud whenever you want, but if you don't like what I have to say, you can, but you'll lose your rank in your career. Do that. That's crazy to me. Like I don't know. Like you want yes men. I don't know. That definitely it felt a little off to me. Like your top generals can't have any, like they're like there to like be your military command, but you like they actually know what they're doing. I don't know. That one actually threw me off. It's exactly what we were just talking about. Just kind of like the sideways action between our 910 and our 880, right? Just like we talked about. Now it's just we just got a lot of build out. They're trying to take in size here in this 80. If we flip it, I think if we flip below 75, we're gonna have probably a pushback down to 830 again. I don't know. We'll see. If this POC, we lose this POC here, it's gonna be an issue short term, and we'll have to come down to this liquidity. We just haven't shown any signs yet that we care about pushing down further. Like we're just taking in sell side pretty easily here at 80. It's getting a little heavy, but again, like we need to show any sort of interest below for me to start to look for it. Still just holding. Trying to step up here again.
The Supreme Court leaves Fed Governor Cook in place for now, deferring acting on Justice Department request to remove her immediately. The date given then, or the timeline, Supreme Court says oral argument on Trump bid to remove Fed's Cook for January.
Surely expecting the US House Democrats press conference at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Excuse me, 11 a.m.
Confused. Okay. 30 seconds, 2015s. New 15s have opened, holding POC of previous candles so far on NQ. Yeah. Talk about. Absorbed where we thought we would into our 80 to 90. No flip below. Rotating back up the highs. Thirteen can be supportive. We can. Like 9-10 area can flip bid. Should be able to head to 40. We just want to see our highs taken and show interest above. Built out a little bit of a liquidity here. Buyers here.
Shares of some US jog makers extend gains from previous session. Eli Lilly up 5%, Pfizer up 4.5%.
be our retest to see if we're actually gonna be able to get out of here. You just see a bit more bid here, probably over like 50. Or this will be a very clear lower high, and yes, the bid was there, but pretty lackluster follow through. They stifle this. Probably gonna. Liquidity here, we lose this. Great. Hope that like a complete lack did have any fault there on that little bounce. We're taking advantage, stepping in. Gonna take us back down to where our original bid was. And I like again, like I don't want to like there's nothing currently bearish yet. It just was a lack of motivation. Our highs would lead to bearish move later on, right? So we want to keep an eye on this. If we can't get back up here and show any interest into these highs, then it can be it just means like it's a short-term pullback after a failure from buyers to show interest to pull out yet, right? Like, sorry, to break out yet. All we did is pull back to our initial bid that led to this move back up. And now we need to try again. If this fails again and it's an offer, then we can push down. We'll look for this break from a failure, and then these guys being caught off sides for a continuation. But let's say instead we pull back to our buy, right? We then are going to be looking to see if we can now reclaim and do what we were looking for last time, which is hold and interest over this 15. If you can do that, awesome, right? But like if they can't, then it's just going to rotate back down. We'll look for a break for a bow low. It's a very tight area. All we know right now is that there was literally no interest up here before, and that these guys could be potentially trapped if we can't get back up there. So what we've done is just pull back to where the bid was last. Just put this right, so this is just a value retest. Why I drew it like that. And now it's just a matter of like, can we show interest above that, or I'll buy this up. Remember, like this is POC of previous candle, so all we did was pull back towards that. And it's our value edge of range from the lower area. So it's just coming back towards that, and then again, like I'd like to see us show interest over this 15, show any sort of active bid for this to feel real, or it's just going to be like our first lower high off of that bounce, and it'll feel pretty bad. once we get under this, and then this would be our catalyst, right? Because these guys are outside of value, this being our value here. And then we'd be then holding our value low as resistance. And it's like, okay, well, if these guys are all outside of value, we're now holding below, then I'm going to expect downside. But as long as this is maintaining, then it's just drop. Hopefully, like, the visual aid there was. What parameters show that there's sellers aren't the lack of movement, the lack of the ability to push down, the aggressivity of it. Like, there's a lot. What do you mean? Are you talking about like an indicator? There's no. I'm just looking at the DOM and I'm looking at front. Like, there's very clearly someone passive that's sitting up here, but we're not seeing any follow through from real sellers at our lows. So as long as I don't see someone like actively stepping down, it's more like the bid is just stepping out of the way. Like, they're not like, how do I word this? It's more like the bid is just stepping out of the way back to where value is found last, right? Down at this 96, more so than sellers steamrolling buyers, and we're pushing down in spite of those buyers on the DOM and on footprint itself. So it's like, okay, well, like, yes, there's very clearly a seller up here that is active and taking in size. And so we should be aware of them, which is why I said 15 years. But until we can push below this active bid here that's sitting at this value, right? Value area here, and we push below, like, I can't in good consciousness like say that this is bearish yet. We have to get below and show this as resistance for me. I think that this.
According to TASS, Russian defense minister meets North Korean counterpart.
We probably see a bid here short term at this 75.80. And if we can step below it, then we can head to 30. If not, if we can't get back over this 900, then, right, like, we're just trapped in this balance now. So we're just following our pathing. What we're watching for is a failure to get back above. And if this fails, this. But this is just bottom of balance. Why I said like there's nothing here other than this trade based off the pathing. We need to see this flip offer or continue bottom of our value. So this is where we'll watch for that offer to be at our value high of this fixed range where this buyer was last. If this buyer is now our seller, and we can then aggressively push below 80s and hold that as offer, then we can go down, have 50 points. But if this holds, then there's nothing else here. Balance between this seller and this buyer. Is what I'm saying making sense, or are you guys like,
According to a Fox reporter, the Senate now taking procedural vote on Dem CR. They need 60 yeas.
yes, exactly. That's gotta flip. We get that flip below that 75.85, then that continues. And that lines up again with our fixed range then going offer as well, right? Like if that value low of this fixed range holds as resistance, that is a good sign that we want to go down. Till then, like any look into that, seen absorption, right? We've absorbed the seller. So I need to see that flip for more. Until then, like that's your risk off for your first, the short target one. If we can push down further, then we should head to like 30. But that's gotta flip for more. We know that there's an active bid there. Do we know that there's someone above that is holding these buyers offside? Yeah, right. So like that can be our catalyst for the breakdown for the larger move. But until then, right, like it's just a return back to this edge where our known buyer is. It's like we talked about. Our known buyer, our known seller, and we know that that seller is stepping down or attempting to step down. Yeah, great. See that bid is still there. That's 75. All of our liquidity on
Russia
Dom.
drafts plan to seize foreign assets if EU acts on funds.
Gotta flip it and hold it. Gotta aggressively, again, trade down to like 30 to 40. But if there's no interest below, then we're just gonna rotate back up. Or like 900, 900.
So a bit more info into this Russian plan. Russia may nationalize and swiftly sell off foreign-owned assets under a new privatization mechanism in retaliation for any European moves to seize Russian holdings abroad, according to a person closer to the government. President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday signed an order allowing for fast-track sales of state-owned assets under special procedure. Hundreds of Western companies working in sectors from banking to consumer goods still operate in Russia, including UniCredit, Pepsi, and International. Mondelez International. Data shows Venezuela oil exports surpassed 1 million barrels per day in September for the first time since early 2020.
You're playing off of this 75.80. This has to be your first risk off into 96, 900, 900. It's top of range. What we can see happen here is if we fail to, from this low, push above this pivot, then we look for that offer to step down. Right, because then we're trapped inside this value here. Seller is still. What we need to see happen is a very clear that again, like trapped here, which could lead like down. You either want to see an immediate step above this red pivot or a very clear higher low hold of secondary if we're going to get that upside move. Like confirming that that buyer is still very clear present. Hold onward. Here it is. Target one. Are there questions about like this position, or do we understand balance? Yeah. And again, like what we know, like the information we know is that we know that there's an offer above who's willing to take in size, and that there isn't a bid who's willing to maintain. We know that we've pulled back to our known buyer at 75.80. We know that our seller has attempted to step down. So we have a seller that's up here at 910, 920. We know that we have a secondary seller who stepped in here at 900, flip our bid, where our bid previously tried to step up at this 96 to 900. And so we know that if we can't push from our known buyer at the 75 and we can't get over our secondary seller who's here, and we can't see this active bid continue to hold and get us back above this guy, that we're more likely going to head down than up, right? If we lose this pivot after rejecting here, it is pretty clear that we want to go down, right? This is kind of our line in the sand right now. So if we reject here and then we can't find an active bid here, we are more likely going to go down than up. And then we'll look for this offer to be here because we rejected here. If this holds still and we come up and then we take this out, that's pretty bullish. That means that that bid is still active, the seller is active, but the buyer is still willing to defend after that move, and then we can look for more upside. It's just a balance trade, right? Right now we're rotating in between this area. If this guy's still showing size and willingness to hold after this test, like, okay, we can go up. Then we'll retest these guys up here. So that's why it's like it's a good first risk off. We haven't done anything to invalidate the long buy at this 75.80. until we do, and we see that seller step down and willing to defend, right, this area and then push below. Like there's no active short. It's just like this is our risk off, this is our risk off, and our secondary move here. If we can hold it and show it as supportive now off of this hold, amazing, right? Then let's play around it. If this fails here and then we look back below, then we can play this offer down and then that continues. All we know is that we have this lower balance and then we have this passive seller sitting above. That's all we know. Can it become something bigger? Yeah, sure, right? Like we can then play that this is our catalyst if we can break below 75s and hold. And then we can look for a much broader move for a pullback to 30. Until then, though, like, it is what it is. We're trapped here. Balance, be balancing.
The S&P 500 turns positive after erasing opening decline.
There's us. And do we get why this is a good secondary risk off, right? Like this is POC of our sell side. Like we have to very clearly start to build above this POC for us to get more, which is why we have it pathed as such. Like there's literally nothing here until we show interest above and can bid. This is it. Like this is our primary seller. That makes sense, right? Or no? Remember, like our job as retail traders who scalp, is to find value, right? And then trade around value. So like what we've done is we have identified our primary buyer, our primary seller, and our secondary seller. And we are then trading around those areas with an idea of what should happen and what to expect if we are able to hold and recover right? And that gives us our trading edge. Because we know that there's no short continuation if this passive buyer is going to continue to absorb here. We know that there is no sell if this now holds as supportive. We know that this is our first risk off. This is our value edge here. And we know that this is our secondary risk off as we push into this primary seller where we absorbed. What we need to see now is on the close of this 15, right? And the ability to push and hold up in this area where this passive seller is sitting. If we can now build here like we have pathed, right? We can flag here. That is telling us that this buyer is now willing to absorb this passive seller, right? Taking the size here that's sitting here, the liquidity. And then we are willing to then expand off of it after holding our low, right? So like this passive buyer is more than willing to continue to push, which is great, which is what we're doing now. So like if we can now hold this and bid above, we should be able to step up to that 40 target. Because we held our lows, right? Like there was no invalidation of our uptrend. Our uptrend is intact. Our buyer held where it needed to. All we did was come down back to that value. No invalidation of said value. So it's a great risk off. And now we look to see if we can bid and hold. If we can bid and hold up here without falling back down, right? If we can hold this area now where this passive seller was, and it's now our active bid, we should be able to rotate up to our target. Because again, nothing has invalidated about the overall trend. All we did was pull back to our active bid that was down here and do a rotation without invalidation. So our uptrend is still intact. We just created an upper balance, right? This box here. Each trade we pulled back to our buyer. From there, we saw a very active bid step in. We then saw a POC shift. We held where we needed to. We stepped over our level. And we're now showing an active interest over where our passive seller was sitting up at our highs, right? So we can continue onward. As long as this is maintaining now, we should head up to our next target. I hope like that concept, like if you don't understand that, you are asking questions right now, because this is your edge. This is why we can, I guess what you could call predict what's going to happen, is because we're just trading between known participants. And we have expectations of what they will do within that area based off of that. I'm risked off 90% of my position. I have 10 contracts left. We'll see if we can bid up these highs for continuation. But like I have, again, like I have 10 micros left from our 75, 80, right, area, and I'm up $840 with 10 contracts left of micros. Like just off of our value hold of understanding that this is where our bid is. Like that's just a rotation back up to value. And now we'll look to see if we can hold this following our pathing. If that can hold, then we can keep going up. But like you don't need big size to make money. Like who's not happy with making $1,000 off of a value rotation? You're crazy. Right? Like this is, I'm not like, this isn't a flex. I just want to like show you what's possible if you actually learn how to trade around value. Right? Like this is like, just find your edge, trade set edge. Nothing invalidates, like do the thing. Just took off a little bit more here. I'm selling in lots of two now as we push into target. I just, like I said, I just scaled out another 2 there, Jay. So I have 8 contracts left. We're watching now to see if this like 910, 920 can hold. Because we want to now hold this edge, ideally. If this fails, right, we've basically gone into target now. So if this guy is now going to be our seller, and we look back below this POC, like we don't show interest here at this value low of our current candle, and then our offer starts to step in here again, then we'll most likely rotate back through this range back to our 75 and do this move again. So my stop now is this active bid. It can be break even if you want, but like you should be watching this area here. Like you can easily move up your stop now to this guy. See what I mean? Or like this is your invalidation now. So like either below 95s or really like below 905. Because we want to see this bid now maintain here. Because if we get below this guy here, like the move's kind of done. So it's really up to you. You can either have it break even and then look for a full rotation back. But in my opinion, like, why are you giving back all of those gains? Because we know that like if we can't build above this previous seller and maintain this, and if this can't hold as supportive, like we're more than likely going to just rotate back through our full value structure. So it's like, do you want to give back that entire rotation or just close and then look to reevaluate once we get back in? Because like if you keep your stop break even from these lows, you miss out on the potential opportunity to take this as a short for the rotation back down. And then what could happen is that it just stops you out at our low. And then we just bid here again and then just do this rotation over and over again. So it's really like, what do you care about? Have you taken off risk? Because again, like we know that like what we want to see now is this seller is now our buyer, which is what's trying to happen, right?
US stock index turned positive. S&P 500 up 0.1%, Nasdaq up 0.1%, the Dow up 0.2%.
Took off another 2. Yeah, right? Because like you're missing out on the potential short trade for the rotation through value. And it'll just like come back down to our entry again. And like we could bounce at our entry. And then it's like, okay, well, I just let this rotation come all the way back down at me, stop me out, and then like the same bid maintains. Like, okay, well, that's kind of useless. So I usually, what I do is I take off what I want to make on the trade. So I have 6 contracts left. I've taken off 24 contracts at this point. Right? And now I'm just in runners. So I could keep this at break even at 83. Or I can just move my stop to like 900. And if I stop at 900, I expect that we will basically offer this and then rotate back through this range. And I don't want to be in the trade because I'm expecting that downside if we fail there. I will be right back.
According to sources, Russia's oil exports from Western ports in September up 25% month over month after drone attacks. That's according to traders and estimates.
All right. Another way to look at it, Jay, is look at our pathing of what we were expecting to happen. Right? We had if we lose this buyer here or this edge, right, which is why my stop is here, like what am I seeing? Well, we had two looks of where we were looking for buyers to be active. This level here and this level here. So if we lose this 10 to 20, right, which is our secondary buyer off this move, that's a pretty bad sign, first of all, because we would then be expecting this to then look for push down to this level. You see how I have this like active bid here, where we're looking for buyers to then be active here. Then we're trying to be active here for rotations up. So like this is where we expect bids to be. So if these bids aren't here, then we should be looking for those pullbacks, right? These become our invalidations. Our buyers, where we're expecting them, will be our offer on retest, right? This is what we talk about, a rebid or a reoffer. We expect these areas to flip, like our little pivots. So like if we fail here at our 900, I expect that this would then go offer again, and then we would come back down to my initial entry. So like to me, this is where my stop wants to be, because I'm playing around this active bid that stepped up above this seller. Yeah. But like you should be able to kind of like know that this is kind of over short term if this guy dips, right? Like if this buyer's not here anymore, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's pretty weak. And we'll rotate down. And you're kind of giving up 20 points here. So it's like, are you willing to risk basically 20 points of profit for a potential continuation? And some people won't be, right? Like they don't have the size to risk that. And like they don't want to give back 20 points, which is totally understandable. But like that's why I take off as, right, we took off primary into this area. And now it's just like, okay, well now we have the ability to let this thing run. That's at least why I trade the way I do. Like I put myself in a position where I can be comfortable in runners with the freedom of being like, I'm willing to give this amount back because we've already made considerable profit. Or I don't want to say considerable. We have already made what I was expecting to make within my risk that I put into the market, right? So like if my expectations have been met, then I can let the trade run because to me, I have already succeeded. I think that's probably a better way to word it. So like my mentality has shifted where like I don't feel bad about losing this because we've already secured what I was expecting. So there's no loss really in my mind. It's just like where anything that I'm giving back now is just like a part of the trading process. I don't know. It's a weird mentality that you kind of have to like shift towards when you're looking for potential continuation. Everyone's different. Everyone's gonna have different mentalities. Like every trade is going to affect people differently. You've got to find the system that works for you, and that's going to keep you in trades that are winning without like emotionally destroying you each trade. Yeah, I mean it's just like a risk to reward model, right? Like that's all it is. The biggest thing to know again is just like if we're trading value, we know that we're not looking for more downside until this pivot is breached because this is where our active buyer is sitting. We know that there was a secondary seller sitting here. And so like this is where I'm expecting bids to be on any sort of pullback. And if they're not here, I know that we're going to rotate fully down back to our active bid. We also know that our primary seller was sitting here. So as long as this pivot is maintaining, this is incredibly bullish for the market, and we should expect continuation up. Are you willing to, you can either set your stop right below this 910, right? And then that's the move. If we stop out of this, it is what
Atlanta
it
Fed
is.
GDP now index
Or you
little
can set your
changed at
stop here at your
3.84%.
900, and you're expecting then rotations in between, and you want to stay in this because you don't think that price is going to come down back to this low, right? What we know right now is that this is our low, and this is our previous high here. Just gonna keep highlighting it so that you have a understanding. Right now, we are holding our high. As long as that's holding, you can keep staying in that trade. What you could expect is a potential pullback to our mid, right? So now we have a high, a mid, and a low. So if you can stop out below the mid, because you expect if this mid doesn't hold that we go down to our low, right? Like this is this logic. This is our high, this is our mid, this is our low. Again, like most of what I do is break down our areas into value. So as long as we're holding our high, we expect pullbacks to hit this area and then bid off of it. If we flip our high, then we expect pullbacks to our mid. So we can have our stop below our mid or below our high, depending on how much we are willing to give back in our trade. If we think that the mid is going to hold and that will then rotate back up over our high after touching our mid, then there's no reason not to have our stop here. If we lose our mid, we should expect our rotation back down to our low, right? Because that is a full value rotation. So if from our mid hold, we fail to get back over our high, we should expect that we'll then rotate back down to our low. That is just value. Right? So like if we look at this model, and we go back to, sorry, there's a lot of drawings on this chart now after this. But if we go back to this now and I put this on display, does it make sense what my expectations are based off of how we've zoned this off and what we're looking for? Yeah, right? We've created 3 zones. We have 3 lines here as well of what we're expecting. Does that line up with the mentality of like what I'm looking for based off of our pathing? Yeah, right? So now it's starting to click. Do you see why this was our short idea? If our mid failed, what were we expecting? Well, if our mid failed, we'd then be looking for this push below our value low, right? This pivot here for that continuation down. If our mid from our low hold becomes supportive, what are we looking for? Well, a rotation up to our highs. It's here, right? Well, what do we expect if our high then becomes supportive? Well, continuation or expansion outside of our range, which is what we're trying to do now. And that's what our pathing is showing. That's what we played off of. That's the whole idea, is like value is consistent. The way that price moves through value is consistent. So again, like with our logic, you can either have your stop below this because you're expecting that price is going to be able to maintain off of our high, or you can have your stop below our mid because you expect that any pullback is going to result in at least a rotation back up into this high. From here, right, we either reject from this hold at our mid, and then we look for this rotation down, giving you another opportunity to get out, or, right, like if this hold happens, then we get back above, that gives you another opportunity to get back in with this being your risk. So it just really depends. But like as long as you have an idea of how price is going to move, and you have an expectation and you have a system in which you're trading, right, your risk, then like it's all good. That's what I was kind of getting at. Anyways, our offer is sitting at 940. This is target. Just took off a little bit more. Let's see if we can get some continuation.
According to a Fox reporter, the Senate votes 47 to 53 on procedural vote on Dem spending bill. Needed 60 yeas. Now taking procedural votes on GOP plan. Need 60 yeas again.
What a banger from 75. Yeah, it was a good one. And it's just a footprint trade. Seeing that we were absorbing there. Like there's no reason to look for more below. I'm glad we at least got like one good trade before the slowdown of midday. And I inevitably give up and leave.
House Speaker Johnson says there's nothing for me to give or to negotiate. House Speaker Johnson speaking on CNN.
All right, well, we hit our 40 target. Just gotta figure out what we're gonna do now. Not a lot of information to go off of. RTY is starting to lead down. Not really a ton of size yet that I care about on this candle.
As a reminder, 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Fed Sparkin speaks at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington Economic Outlook Conference. Text is expected, but he is repeating his 26th September speech. There is a Q&A with a moderator, but there's no live stream.
Is anyone playing Black Ops 7? Like Call of Duty Black Ops 7?
So just to summarize what Barkin said in his speech last time, just to summarize then, Fed cut was justified balancing risks between inflation and a cooling labor market. Job growth is slowing but not collapsing. Immigration limits keep supply tight. Inflation pressures remain, but firms face pushback on passing costs to consumers. Barkin supports a cautious, data-dependent approach, not rushing more rate cuts.
Yeah, I understand. Right there with you. I was just looking at, I'm like watching clips of this game, and it looks like they've like fully integrated cheats into the game itself because they like know they can't get rid of the cheaters. So now like kill streaks are just cheats. Like, I'm so confused.
Reminder as well, Barkin did say that I see the monthly break-even jobs rate now in the 0 to 50K range.
Like, look at this. Like, what are we doing?
about 3 minutes ago until we're expecting Fitzbarkin to speak, repeating his September 26th speech, where what text is expected. There is a Q&A with moderator, but no live stream. Johnson just reiterating what he said before, that the House is coming back next week.
Not much to say, right? Just in our runners, waiting. Not really a great re-entry as of yet, sadly. Very slow.
Johnson ends his remarks on CNN. Also, about less than a minute to we're expecting, about 30 seconds till we get text release from Fitzbarkin, and again, repeat from September 26th. Ten seconds.
Offer sitting at 50. Real Krosky. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to do, man. It's just like slow trend up. Sell side's trying to step in again. Gonna have to wait for a better pullback. If we're gonna get more continuation, I think we'll start to curl over with the lack of upside momentum, and then we'll come back down and retrace a bit of this, build out some structure, and go from there. I'm not gonna be here for too much longer either. No reason to sit and chop.
Philadelphia Semiconductor Index hits record high, last up 1.1%.
Wait, this is crazy. Surf. Want to see something interesting? This is real. That's Saudi Arabia's prince. That's his Steam account. The guy who just bought EA. He's like a complete weeb. Uh, Market transactions within Steam, 30,000. Bro is the Steam economy. Retesting highs, no change, just ranging. Good hold at 40s off of our bid, off of POC. See if we can actually do something with this. It's really slowed down. Still just in runners from 80.
Its rating says US government shutdown highlights policymaking and governance challenges. we have posted out the piece from Fitch Ratings, again, US government shutdown, highlights policymaking and governance challenges. So from the piece that says US government shutdown does not have near-term implications for the AA plus stable US sovereign rating, but highlights long-standing policymaking weakness and political brinkmanship around budgetary issues. Further from this Fitch forecast, the general government deficit will narrow to 6.8% of GDP this year from 7.7% last year, partly due to a surge in tariff revenues, which they now expect to reach $300 billion or 1% of GDP this year, up from $77 billion in 2024. Fitch Ratings says, despite increased uncertainty around US policy, we expect the US dollar's predominant reserve currency status to continue for the foreseeable future. Fitch was adding that reversing previously enacted Medicaid cuts would not meaningfully impact our near-term US deficit forecasts. Adding the potential for US government shutdown to adversely affect economic growth would depend on its scope and duration.
Mm. I don't know, guys. I don't know if there's going to be really much else short term. We're attempting our edge here again at 40. This was PT, just kind of chopping around now. RTY starting to lead down pretty aggressively. A bid is resting at 448 on Russell. Went down into it now. Watch for a reaction. Buyer kind of in a bad place here into like 45.50 on NQ. It's too slow really for me to call anything specifically here. But there's the longer we just kind of like rest up here, the more of like a curl over pattern going to form. And the more likely I feel we're going to need to come down to retest our previous break just to build out structure up here with like the lack of a bid to continue us onward. That's kind of the idea right now. Where we enter for that idea is up in the wind yet, right? Like there's nothing really yet. 'Cause as long as 30 is holding, I just don't really think that there's any potential for like a continuation down. What I'm really watching is just like we need, it's the same as before. Sorry, I'm thinking as I'm talking. Like we are holding our value here. We would need to see these buyers in this low go offer for downside continuation. But what we should be at least expecting is a rotation back towards that. We can look for an expansion potential. Sorry, a structural fill potential if this doesn't hold. But it feels very similar to what we were doing down here, where we kind of like came up, fizzled out, and then had to retest our value before we could move onward. This feels very similar to our previous structure that we just played. Which is just kind of, again, like building, we pop, and then we kind of fizzle out, and then we have to rotate back down, and then onward afterwards, right? Something like this, kind of pathing wise. I just don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know. Again, like very similar concept. We've looked above our value. We're now looking inside value. We've pushed down to POC. If we can't show interest above, expect a rotation back down to our low here, and we'll figure out if it's hold or flip this. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else here. Just gotta wait. So slow. So far, POC holding. Look above. You can see if this bid will hold on retest over 40s, or if this down. I don't really have anything to say. We know how this plays, right? Either POC holds and then value becomes supportive, like we talked about, right? Or this will fail, and then we'll look for the rotation down to our value low.
In about 10 minutes' time, White House Press Secretary Levitt gives a briefing. We'll put out the video on the feed.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think anything has changed. Levitt is going to be speaking soon. I'm really not trying to hear 4 hours of nothing. Yeah. I think I'm gonna head out. I don't know. There's not really much to do. We know what needs to happen, right? Like it's value holds and we build this out, or this will
We
become
have posted out the
resistance
video on
and
the feed
then
for you to
we'll
watch.
rotate down, right? Pathing is set for downside. Upside is just building out structure and then continuing onward. I don't know. I mean, really all there is. I'm not expecting the market to move all that much with Levitt speak. Here's the press conference. Yes, looks much worse than any. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, so again, like I think 20 to 30 is your value for right now. You would need to see that very clearly flip offer for downside, in my opinion, or just be looking for this to kind of build out just like we did below, like we talked about, right? Previous structure. Just looked into our value lows, then rotated back up, and then popped. This feels very similar. Just slow, very clear that there's a passive seller up here into 50. But if the bid steps above and holds, then we just continue onward. Very clear that there's a passive buyer willing to take in size. It's just this rotation. It's a 20-point range right now, 30 and 50. And it's just kind of a waiting game. Oh, we wait for a Levitt to come out. I mean, it could pop here. I don't really see the reason why. There's so much liquidity resting above. If it pulls out of the way, sure. I think expecting any sort of expansion right now before Levitt speaks, I don't believe it would last if it did actually pop. This feels like we're pretty range bound for the short term, but maybe we pop, you know? I don't know. I wouldn't expect it to hold though when Levitt starts speaking. 40 seconds till new 15s. A good value hold off of our POC and then value push. Again, I just don't see the reason why we would continue right now with any sort of like lasting structure. Expect it to probably chop pretty sideways with Levitt speaking. Expect that to revert back down after this little drop. That's at least my expectation. That being said, I'm going to close my 480, my 880 position here. Then I'm gonna, again, like I'm really not trying to sit here for Levitt. I've got things I need to do today. If we continue, amazing, right? We had a great entry at 75s to 80s, but done for the day. Very nice trade. Now, either chill in that position unless something breaks structurally, or just look for these reversions. But you guys have a great rest of your day. Levels are on charts. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just an uptrend. Got the low. So until something shifts, either stay in or close for profit and trail on, you know, I don't know what else to say. Good luck with the rest of the day, though. Peace.